Welcome to Be the Medicine podcast, pathways to healing and liberation through ancestral intelligence. A space for rooted listening, embodied truth, and remembering what we already know. I'm your host, Renee Ifagbaye Eshibola Alagbebesina Tenawawe Oshundrumola. I am the daughter of Maureen, Dr. Richard Smith, and Stephen Tyson. I am the granddaughter of Brodell Anderson, Cecil Smith, Violet, and Jacob Chevalier. I am the great-granddaughter of Lucia Andrews Tyson, Vickers Tyson, Hilda and Eddie Benoit, and Dorothy Simon. Today, we are exploring the anatomy of trust. Today, we are exploring the anatomy of trust. Not trust as something we give away, not trust as something earned through performance, but trust as a structure, as a system, as a living pathway. Trust has joints and hinges. It has openings and thresholds. And like any structure, it can be reinforced or quietly weakened by what we ignore. So today, we slow down, we listen closely, and we meet trust where it actually lives. We often speak about trust as if it's emotional, something you feel or don't feel. But trust is actually psychological before it's emotional. It lives in the nervous system, in the pause before you respond, and whether your body leans forward or pulls back. This is why broken trust doesn't just hurt feelings, it reorganizes behavior. Think about the places where you feel safe. Those are the places where you will lean in, where you will give a part of yourself that no one else knows. But think about the places where trust has been broken. Those are the places where it reorganizes your behavior. And some of the behaviors may include creating new boundaries, understanding what you're willing to do from what you're not willing to do, pulling back your energy. These are all behaviors that are created when trust has been broken. Researcher Brené Brown teaches that trust is built in small moments, what she calls marble jar moments. Tiny actions, kept promises, truth spoken consistently. But what's often missing from that conversation is this. Before a marble ever enters the jar, the body is already deciding whether it's safe to reach. Before the marble ever enters the jar, the body is already deciding whether it's safe to reach. Trust is not just cognitive, it's instinctive. It's ancient. It's a messenger system. Your body knows before your mind explains. And the easiest way to think about that, as I'm sitting here speaking with you all, I'm thinking about when my daughter was little, like a baby. She would say things and do things, and we would never always understand it. But a lot of it came from an instinctive way of the way in which she saw the world as a little person. She wasn't able to always express it, but you can tell who she felt safe next to. What do babies naturally do? They go to you. They'll come and sit on your lap. You won't notice why. You may not even know them. I've had that happen to me a number of times. I've gone into spaces where I didn't even speak the same language, and mothers would be like, this child has never done this before. They'll come and sit on my lap, or they'll come and fall asleep. That trust is ancient. It's a part of our instinctive way of being, right? We understand and resonate with it. It's a part of our body's nervous system. So many times we need to also understand that trust is always formed at a crossroads. That trust is formed at a crossroads. A moment where you choose whether to speak or stay silent, whether to move forward or to pause, whether to listen or override what you know. Every crossroads carries information, and trust grows when we honor the information, not when we rush past it. When we ignore the system, trust fractures. When we listen, trust reorganizes. This is not about moral right or wrong. This is about alignment. That trust itself happens when you have to make choices, right? And understanding that we're always making choices every day in our lives. We're making choices about whether to speak up, whether to stay silent, whether to move forward, whether to take a pause, whether to exit. All of those are at the crossroad. And determining at the crossroad what that looks like for each and every one of us, that it's not a monolith, meaning every time you get to that crossroad, it's going to be a yes or no. It's going to be a right or wrong. Sometimes, I always like to say, sometimes people can't see the gray. They only see black and white. There are those moments where at that crossroad, you're actually creating a new pathway that may actually be gray. How is that going to reorganize the way in which you function in the world? How does it bring you into alignment? So as we continue to have this conversation about trust, we want to think about it as a system, right? And in every system, you have pillars or structures or tenets that kind of guide the process of understanding the system. So I propose these 3 pillars for trust: truth, choice, and communication. Truth, choice, and communication. So let's start at the first pillar. Truth. Truth acts as a mirror. When we see it in the system, when we think about a symbol, we think about a mirror, the reflection of who we are. Truth is the mirror of trust. It's not confession. It's not oversharing. It's the idea of alignment. Truth is when your inner knowing and outer expression speak the same language. I'm going to say that one again. Truth is when your inner knowing and outer expression speak the same language, right? When folks who know you, and someone were to come up and say, oh, I saw X, Y, and Z doing X, they'd be like, nope. You know why? Because they've known you long enough to build trust with you, and they know who you are. And they know that your inner expression and your outer expression are always going to say the same thing. And anytime it's out of character, they can speak up for you because they understand who you are. That your inner knowing and your outer expression, that's what trust is. That's what it means when people have even trust in you. That's what it means to have trust in yourself. And that's how we build relationships, right? They're based on the fact that what we know about ourselves and what the outer expression is, those two things match. And that over time, as we continue to be in relation with each other, that trust grows. It doesn't mean that we don't have the space to make mistakes, right? Because we're about learning about ourselves and creating new opportunities and new pathways and evolving. But we also understand that because I know you and I know you well enough, that outer expression is going to match that which I know. This understanding helps us to know when our body isn't bracing while our mouth is saying yes. Without truth, trust becomes performance. And performance always collapses under pressure. I can think about even where I am in this moment in my life, where there are certain activities that I have been doing for years, that I am very good at, that my body is saying, that's it, you're done, and I need you to be very clear about an exit strategy. And it's not about the people that I work with. It's not about the, spaces and places that I've been gifted to be able to be and show up for and make presentations and create momentum and all of those things. I think that the truth of the moment is that my nervous system no longer wants to function in these spaces. And I have to be honest about that. That mirror is going to help me to align my outer expression. If I don't take the time to sit and figure out what that truth is, I could be detrimental to my own existence. That's how important it is that as we continue to think about the anatomy of trust, that truth would be our first pillar and it would act as the mirror. Making sure that we're not walking around in performance mode with the mask on. And as we do that, we are betraying ourselves so that our inner knowing and our outer expressions are out of alignment. So let's take a minute to reflect and say, where am I asking trust to exist without truth? Where am I asking trust to exist without truth? So the second pillar of trust is choice. And if we want to create a symbol for choice, we would create it as a gate. It's a gate that has a little latch on the back. You open the latch, it opens. You close it, the latch closes, and it creates a barrier, a physical barrier. Trust cannot be forced. Any trust that exists without choice is obedience, silence, or survival. Real trust requires a gate, one you can open and close. Choice gives trust dignity. I'm going to say that again. Choice gives trust dignity. A yes means something only when a no is allowed. A yes means something only when a no is allowed. So take a moment to think about in your own life, where are there spaces where choice, right, the ability to choose, does not feel as though it exists? And you want to really ask about why. Why doesn't it exist? What about this moment? What about the trust? What about what is happening is causing me to feel as though I have no choice? And or is there a choice that I'm afraid of making because it may make me uncomfortable, and or it may make others mad at who I am or what I'm choosing? Because that is also something that's very important to understand. That sometimes in certain situations, we fail to choose ourselves. And in failing to choose ourselves, we break trust with ourselves. We knew that our spirit and our inner knowing was asking us to choose ourselves. And instead of choosing ourselves, we chose others. And in that moment where the outer expression may be what we want it to be, our inner knowing has just experienced broken trust. So we want to think about choice. And we want to reflect on, where do I need to reopen choice in order to feel safe again? To feel safe in our own selves, to feel safe in our homes, to feel safe in our relationships. Where do I need to reopen choice in order to feel safe again? And so the third pillar for trust is communication, right? And so the first pillar we had truth, which was the mirror. Our second pillar we had choice, which was the gate. Our third pillar is communication. And the way I want to think about communication is how, if you live in New York, and I know that people are listening to this everywhere, so I want to make sure I explain it well. If you live in New York, there is a culture around homing pigeons. These are pigeons that during the times of war, I've actually seen them also in the Caribbean where people raise pigeons to be able to take messages to and from. They carry messages in their wings, on their legs. They come back to their home. They understand how to come back to their home. And so in this analogy, I'd like to use communication, and I would like to use the homing pigeon as our symbol. Mainly because communication is a two-way street, right? It's not quite the crossroad, right? The crossroad is that place where all things are meeting and you're making a choice about what path to take. But communication is a two-way street. It has to go and it has to come back. It is reciprocal, right? It's a give and take. And so you want to think about communication as one of the pillars, because without communication, there's no way for people to understand your truth or your choice. It has to be communicated somewhere, somehow, either in communication of yourself, communication in the way in which you've chosen to move forward. It gets communicated. And so communication becomes very, very important. So communication is how trust moves. It's not constant explanation. It's not emotional labor. It's timely, clear, grounded exchange. Trust breaks not only through dishonesty, but also through delay, through avoidance, through messages that never arrive, because unspoken truth becomes distortion. So this idea that once we understand our truth, we've taken a moment to reflect on what is happening in this current moment and what we are saying, our inner knowing and outer expression needs to be in order for it to be in alignment. And then we're given the opportunity to choose. We have a choice about which pathway we're going to take in order to ensure that this alignment can continue. We then have to communicate it. It may be communicating it to others. It may be communicating it to ourselves so that, one, we don't avoid situations, people, places, or things in which this choice, this truth can be challenged, and that we're not standing in the fullness of our own integrity, in our own dignity to be able to say, this is who I am, this is why I'm doing what I do. We also want to make sure that we are communicating it so it doesn't create distortions in our reality. Many times we will live in chaos because we haven't spoken our truth. We will accept chaos every day. And every day that we're accepting that chaos, please know that even though you are not saying it, your body is feeling it. And your nervous system is reorganizing the way in which you experience the world based on that. So it is important that we first have the moment of reflection and understand our truth, and then we understand our choice. And from our choice, we communicate what we understand it to be. Whether it is writing it down, whether it is having it in communication with our partners, whether it's in communication with our jobs, what we plan to do, all of those things are very important for us to do. Because when we don't do it, it creates distortions within our own reality. So I want us to take a moment to really meet trust in our body. I want us to take a moment to meet trust in our body. So take a moment to take a deep breath in and breathe out. Again, deep breath in and breathe out. 2 more, deep breath in, breathe out. Last one, deep breath in and breathe out. And if it feels safe, allow your eyes to close. And I want you to bring attention to your breath. Not changing it, but just noticing it. Notice where your body feels settled, and notice where it feels alert. Now imagine yourself standing at a quiet crossroads. There is no rush, no demand to choose, just presence. In front of you are paths representing truth, choice, and communication. Truth, choice, and communication. Notice which one your body is drawn to. You don't have to analyze it, just notice. And ask silently, what do I need to trust myself again? What do I need to trust myself again? Let the answer rise as a sensation, as an image, or a knowing. Because there is no wrong response. What do I need to trust myself again? When you're ready, bring one hand to your heart and one hand on your belly. Take a deep breath in. Breathe out. Deep breath in. Breathe out. Again, deep breath in. And breathe out. And repeat to yourself, trust begins here. Trust begins here. So before we can repair trust with others, we must repair trust with ourselves. Self-trust is built when you keep your own word, when you stop abandoning yourself to belong, when you listen the first time your body speaks. Every time you honor your knowing, trust strengthens. Every time you ignore it, trust weakens. We have to be okay with honestly looking into the mirror and saying when we've abandoned ourselves and forgiving ourselves so that we can begin to build trust in ourselves again. I know, personally, that I've made choices all my life. Some choices for the benefit of others, some choices for the benefit of myself. But over time, I've had to learn that every choice that I've made has allowed me to be who I am today. And that the trials and the tribulations and the hardships, I wouldn't choose it any other way. You know, my daughter is amazing because the other day we were walking home and out of the blue, she says, "Mom, how'd you meet my dad?" You never know where these conversations are going to go. I said, "Oh, to be honest with you, I actually met him at a barbershop. He gave me like a haircut." She's like, "He gave you a haircut?" I said, "Remember I used to wear my hair, low and cut all the time?" And she said, "Oh yeah." I said, "So literally I met him because my regular barber had gone to Trinidad for Carnival. I needed to get my hair cut because I had a performance. I was getting ready to go out of town. And all the other brothers that were in the barbershop, I was like, no." And so Spirit said, "Trust him. Okay, let's try it." And I remember sitting in his chair and saying, "Look, please do not make me look like a boy. He laughed, and I said, no, I'm serious. Like, most men cut men's hair. So when you cut women's hair, you cut it the same way. And I don't want to look like a boy. And so that was many, many years ago, like many years ago. And, over the course of several years, whenever I needed a fill-in barber, I would just, go and see if he was available and jump in his chair. And then one day he asked me out, and I was like, hey, why not? And so, we went out. And so that's how that kind of blossomed. And so she said, oh, that's very interesting. Now, of course, as a child, 12 going on 13, she has her own experiences with her father. She's seen our relationship. She's seen me really trying to cultivate spaces for her to make her own decision and her own choices. And so she understood when over time, she's understood like why we're not together. She said, though, very curious, and in the way that she always is, she says, but you made that choice, Mom. And so because of that choice, I'm here. And in that moment, all I could do was smile. Because of all of the tribulations, all of the trials, all of the heartache, she's right. That choice created the best part of me. And folks sometimes ask, well, how do you get over, heartache? How do you get over these periods of time where you think you may have made the wrong choice, but the actuality is that part of your destiny required you to make that choice in order for these other components to occur? And what I say is, I learned to forgive myself. I went through a period of time where I was just writing in my journal about all of the things that had transpired for me and how I remembered them and how those memories have shaped my outer expression, and being able to go back and literally write down and say, I forgive myself. I forgive my 5-year-old self. I forgive my 10-year-old self. I forgive, right? I forgive my 16-year-old self, because I probably should have said X, Y, and Z, and I didn't. And what it did is that dis-ease created disease in my own body. And it created opportunities where I didn't trust myself when I really didn't know what I was doing. And so forgiveness becomes the vehicle for us to be able to regain trust, specifically with ourselves. It works on the outside as well, but I would say forgiveness of self is the one that helps us to rebuild self-trust. That we are allowed to make mistakes. And yes, we live with the consequences of those mistakes, but it doesn't define who we are. When I was in education daily, meaning I was teaching in the classroom and I was doing education fairs and arts education and all of those things, I did a lecture one time that said, let's move the F to G. And everyone was like, what? I said, we've taught children and young people that the grade on their paper defines who they are. That F is not a failure, but it allows us the opportunity to find other solutions for growth. And so many times what happens is we take the F and we allow it to define who we are, when in actuality it was just a moment in time, right? It was a moment in time that if we heard and understood the lesson, we continue to be able to apply it in a very specific way. But because sometimes our actions are so tied to our understanding of our own self-worth, we forget to untie it. And so that particular moment in time has now created a sense of distrust for yourself. And so what forgiveness does is it helps us to go back in time. And remember, if you all have listened to any of our other podcasts, we talk about the knot, right? We talk about going back and untying the knot and why it's important in healing to go back and untie the knot, to go back and forgive ourselves, to go back and look at the situation in our present understanding with our present capacity to be able to say, yeah, I would have done it differently, but this is what I learned about myself in that moment, and it doesn't define me. And so many times what we've done is we've tied who we are to the moment instead of the moment being the lesson that we have the ability to continue learning from. And so that's what forgiveness gives us. It gives us the opportunity to untie. It gives us the opportunity to stand back and actually observe what may have happened in the way in which it happened so that we can get the lesson, but that we can also take a moment to sit and actually express our truth, to be able to know our inner knowing and our outer expression, that they're in alignment, or that the places where they were out of alignment, to acknowledge that, and to acknowledge what we're going to do in the future to ensure it doesn't happen in that manner anymore. So this is part of the work that we do when we talk about transformation, when we talk about healing. It is really about that mirror. It's about this idea of really rebuilding trust. Because what has happened is through our experiences that have now shaped our outer expressions, we then have gone on to believe that that's how and who we need to be. But many times, healing comes from remembering who we are at the core and acknowledging moments when we have stepped outside of that knowing and being okay with forgiving ourselves. So when we talk about, well, how do I forgive myself? How do I even recognize that this is happening and that I need to rebuild trust within myself? One of the ways that I would say to do this is you can start by journaling. If you have a significant trauma that has existed in your life, I would ask you to revisit yourself at that time and take a moment to journal, to write the things that you may have forgotten to write, to say, to be, that you wish you could have, that you wish you would have. And it's important because writing creates this cathartic experience that allows us to express the things that we may not have expressed out in public, but it also creates a balance around us really getting to the bottom of something that we may not have been able to express in the moment. And this is why it's so important to think about trust as those three pillars that we talked about: truth, choice, and communication. When we don't communicate, it sits somewhere. We chose silence, but in choosing silence, we also chose to not share our truth. And in that expression has to sit somewhere. And so journaling is that place where it can allow for that catharticism to happen and for us to bring up the things that may have just sat. So journaling is one of the ways that we can begin that process. And I share this with you all because I think that when we talk about larger concepts that feel like they are ethereal and outside of our physical understanding of touch, they're very much concepts, that it's important that we bring it to a place where it becomes practical. And that's really important because this work is about us really being able to tap into our ancestral understanding. And that's a part of our ancestral understanding, that healing occurs in the past, present, and future, all at the same time. And so it's important that in these moments when we understand that healing needs to occur, or that we need to build trust with ourselves, that we're allowing ourselves moments in time to begin to relive and understand what we've gone through in order to forgive ourselves. Another element that can be very helpful in this process is flower essences. And as you all know, this is the realm of the things that I love to do. And this month in March, we are tackling truth. We're looking at trust, choice, and communication as our theme for the entire month. One of the reasons we're looking at it in this month is because we're also approaching the spring equinox. So for the last 3 months, well, since the winter solstice, so 3 months and a half, we have been experiencing sacred winter, the medicine of winter, the ability for us to think about what we want to bring forth in the spring. Thinking about what renewed understanding about ourselves have we been cultivating in this season of rest that is going to shine through as we've planted new seeds for the spring. So this is what we're cultivating in this time period. So there are 3 flowers that we want to look at that are helpful during this season. We have Serato, we have Walnut, and we have Barrage. Serato, I like to say, is the flower that helps us with our inner knowing and helps us to speak our truth. Truth without filter, truth without explanation. It is the I said what I said, drop the mic, walk away flower. I feel watching and learning and seeing clients use it over years, that has been one of the ways that I've been able to witness transformation with them. The affirmation for Serato says, I trust my inner wisdom and speak my truth with clarity and confidence, knowing my voice is powerful and valued. A second flower that helps us during this season is Barrage. And one of the things I love about Barrage is Barrage for me is a heart flower, but it is a heart flower that helps us to walk with our courageous heart, to choose courageously, So Barrage says, I am brave, I speak my truth, and I face challenges with courage. And our final flower for this season is Walnut. And the reason why I like Walnut is because Walnut helps us with transitions, any type of transitions. As I shared before, we're using this in March. We're moving into the spring equinox, that we're looking at what we have cultivated in sacred winter in order for us to bring forth in the spring the truths about ourselves that will help us to plant seeds that we cultivate in this next season. So Walnut is good about the transition. What is the transition about? So Walnut helps us to embrace change with clarity and trust in my path. I release old patterns and step into my truth with confidence. So these are 3 flowers and flower essences that could help if you took them as a single essence, or if you were to explore the truth essence from the Divine Collection. These are the ones that really govern that particular essence. And so we want to think about how we integrate this idea of trust. That trust is a system. It's not just this emotion that flows all over and people say, well, I don't trust you. Well, what does that mean? All right, when someone says that to you, what does that mean? And think about what has been happening for someone to come to the place to say, I don't trust you. I had walked into situations career-wise where me walking in the room had people saying, I don't trust you. They didn't even know me. But I do recognize that people who had been in that position that I was in before had already broken trust. So anyone stepping into those shoes was going to feel the wrath of all of the things that the person couldn't say before to the person who was currently filling those shoes because trust had been broken. And so that's important to recognize. It's important to understand when you are walking into situations and when someone says, I don't trust you. That it's not something that just happens in one instant. It is something that happens over time. And that trust can deteriorate when truths haven't been shared, when choice hasn't actually been choice, and when it hasn't been communicated. Trust is not static. It's responsive. It adapts. It evolves as you do. As you move through the coming days, notice where you are standing at a crossroads, what messages are arriving, and which truths are asking for movement. Trust the signal. Trust the pause. Trust yourself enough to listen and move at the speed of trust. Until next time, stay rooted. If this episode resonated, if something in you softened or stirred, this is your invitation. Rooted Reset is a 3-day spring equinox experience designed to help you pause clear what's no longer aligned, and rebuild trust through truth, choice, and grounded communication. Inside Soul Soil, our self module goes even deeper, supporting and rebuilding of self-trust through reflection, ritual, and embodied practice. Woven through this journey is the flower essence of truth, supporting alignment between inner knowing and outer expression. This is not about fixing yourself. It's about remembering how to listen. If you're standing at a crossroads, you don't have to navigate it alone. You can learn more at www.akikafloweressence.com and join us when you're ready.